Well, it's that time again, kids. Welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean right here on the Rock Ridge Radio Network, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. And I can now say Mapex Drums. Very excited about that. I'm going to say about 3 weeks ago, the one and only Mr. Ricky Rocket had put something on his page about this man. And I had to reach out because he is a master of tuning. And it's a topic that gives most drummers fits. The one, the only Mr. Kenny Sharretts. How are you, sir?
I am good today. How are you doing?
Good. Why do you think it is that it's such a salacious topic? You know, everybody, it's like that do-it-yourself thing. Everybody can tune, yet everybody can't tune.
You know, it's funny, man. It's. I've met a lot of guys who tune great or are just on the edge of tuning great, but they have the same challenge that a lot of other drummers tune, and part of it is straight up. Everyone's mean to the drummer, dude. They're all mean to the drummer, man.
Absolutely.
They're tuning. They're like, dude, we're tuning. You know, while we're sitting up and playing, and it makes the drummer a bit self-conscious of the thing, of their sound. And sound guys can be a bit assertive when there's a warble or something and the drummer doesn't know how to fix it. Anybody in any situation where if you don't know how to fix something and somebody's going, fix it, it can be discomforting and it can create fear or hesitance. And it's just one of those things where they don't really teach you in school how to tune. A lot of the basic tuning ideas are just a theory of following a pattern and till it sounds good. And till it sounds good is not a good reference point. It's a relative reference point to what you think sounds good or what might sound good to somebody else. Or does it sound good for the music that you're playing? Does it sound good for the things you're doing? And so for me, it just became a craft that I got into early on as a drummer playing all my life. And the more I teched, the more it became a craft and an art. And I developed a system kind of before I started teching, but once I started teching, it really became the system to where I can get whatever sound I want out of the drum anytime I want. And I can do it with ease. And I make it like tuning a guitar. And that way, you know, I don't have to deal with somebody going, that doesn't sound right. You know, it just settles it, done. But again, I think it's something that they don't teach. You know, if you have to play guitar, you have to learn how to play guitar right away. If you're playing a horn instrument, you have to learn how to intonate it and get your mouthpiece in the right place. They don't do that with drums. They just hand you a pair of sticks and go, well, you could have played tuba. You know what I mean?
I do. And, you know, and to your point, I mean, like, I was never properly taught. And, you know, everybody's got a different theory and everybody, you know, you got to, you know, get the sound between the lug sound exactly right. And then you think you get something going well, and a sound man likes drums to sound dead and another sound man likes drums to ring. And there's all kinds of different variations. So I guess to start with, you're working with somebody. I guess what's your point of view between, you know, sound man and drummer in that relationship? I mean, it's got to be there, but sometimes sound men are very, very stubborn about what they want to hear through a PA.
Well, I've been blessed in my career to work with some incredible sound guys who have no problem telling me when something ain't right. But usually I hand them something that's right, and so they're like, "Oh, well, this is nice." And then occasionally they go, "Hey, man, can we do something about this, or can we fix that?" And that allows me to open a proper conversation with them rather than them going, "Drum tech, drummer," you know what I mean? And that's why, you know, I started teaching online lessons and started doing online lesson videos and my YouTube channel, so drummers are free of that. They just go straight to tuning the drum. They go straight to making it sound they want, sound the way they want, get the sound they want every time they tune. That's kind of my, you know, my catch line, you know. But when it boils down to it, the cat playing the drums is the first one that matters. And to be honest, as much as, you know, lights and video and all that stuff as a backline tech is on the bottom of the totem pole. Like the guitar tech, bass tech, everybody else up above me. But I'm the lowest on the totem pole. When I tour, my job is to get out of the way. That's the only thing I'm there for. Set up the drums, get out of the way. Now get those drums out of the way, because lights and sound take a lot of time to set up. Those guys get up earlier, and girls, those people get up early. They work hard. They stay up late, and I want them well rested and in a good mood when they're hanging giant things over my head. So it makes sense for me. But if push comes to shove between the drummer and the sound guy, especially if the drummer is the artist, a drummer wins every time, and it's up to the sound guy to fix it. It's up to this. I mean, to me, in the biggest of pictures, it's up to the sound guy to capture what's on stage and make it sound good. But then you get on a show like American Idols where, it's about the people up front. Has nothing to do with the drummers. So that changes the dynamic a little bit. And you need to provide for them what they need to sound good. So it really depends on who you're working for, where you're working. But I go drummer first because I want my drummer to be happy. I want my drummer playing well. That's who I work for directly. Then I usually tend to sculpt what the tones that drummer likes to fit the needs of the sound person or the artist or the music. And that way it's a compromise that doesn't compromise the drummer. Still feels the way they want, still sounds the way they want, and they play great. Because that's for me, my job, to make sure the drummer plays great, sounds great.
So we live in this world of do it yourself, and everybody thinks they can go to Google and tell a pro that they know more than the pro. So for the sake of just snuffing out those arguments where people want to go, well, who the heck is Kenny? You've tuned some buckets for all kinds of great people. Like, drop a couple names just so people can go, oh.
Well, my first gig was with Kenny Aronoff, with Melissa Etheridge and Michelle Branch. You can't not know how to tune drums with Kenny Aronoff. You're not going to last 3 days. After that, I was blessed to work with Chris Layton, with Stevie Wonder, with Michael Urbano, with Smash Mouth. Michael was one of my favorite drummers of all time. He's a killer player. He's got consummate ears. But as it went up, Frampton, Kelly Clarkson, American Idols tours, 30 Seconds to Mars and stuff, although I did bass and keys on that, it was important, but it didn't really, and everyone was happy with my drum sounds. So they were like, this is great. But it started to matter when I worked for Stevie Wonder, because Stevie Wonder knows. He knows if the drums sound like crap or if they don't. I had been with Stevie for like 4 or 5 years. Then I went and did a run with Rihanna, another tour where it matters. Yeah. And the first show I came back with Stevie, he stopped sound check at the beginning of the sound check and goes, stop. Turns to the MD and goes, Nate, the drums, they sound so good. And Nate goes, yes, they do, Stevie. And Stevie goes, Kenny's here, isn't he? And I said, ah! So, when you start doing that, you're taking care of drummers like Aaron Spears, Chris Johnson, Stanley Randolph, man. Little John Roberts with Janet Jackson. You can't have crappy sounding drums with Janet Jackson. You're not going to last. You're not going to last at all. It has to sound good because every instrument has its place in the mix, and that's why tuning is so important. Like the way I tend to tune in arenas for arena and stadium tours allows the PA guys to use minimum EQ on the drums because the drums just sound good from the start. And because of that, they can use the EQ on the other instruments in the track and the singers and make the mix pop rather than going, well, I had to use all the 4K on the tom, But again, I guess the biggest thing I could say is that I got 6 seconds in front of 60,000 people to fix my things were unfired. My drums got to sound the same, exactly the same every day for the mix and for the sound guys to go, or sound people, engineers, because I've worked with some incredible female engineers, to go, boom, it's done. Because they want lunch. I want lunch. I want this done before lunch. So then I can spend the rest of the day preening the kit, dialing things in to make sure everything's 100%, checking the triggers, make sure all the programming is great for the room and for the altitude. And so I have no choice for anyone who has a question. And, it's hard for me because I want to be kind to drummers, man. Look, if it works for you, it works for you. I've seen some drummers who kits sound terrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, this guy's my idol. Then they go play it. And it sounds amazing.
Great.
So I don't judge. If it works for you, it works for you. However, the microphone tends to know the difference. And so unless you're like an Abe Laboriel or a Kenny Aronoff, where it doesn't matter how the drum's tuned, when you hit it, it's going to sound like you. Tuning's important, and that's the thing. Like, I see all these drummers online talk about, oh, muffling. You can't tune if you muffle. No. Muffling is for controlling tones and shaping the sound of your drums to make it sound like a kit. Right. Like with Stevie Wonder, man, Stanley's kit was right in the middle, and then you got 2 percussion risers, literally 2 feet from him, smacking away on timbales and congas and splash cymbals and cowbells, and you've got to be able to create a tone to where they can have a nice clean mix. So they can use the mics to isolate sounds, but if they're having to use different EQs or push gains or whatever, get what they want, it just makes it difficult. So muffling actually keeps it cleaner for the percussionists beside me. And again, like you said, some sound engineers like it dead.
Oh yeah.
You know, that
Well,
might be their work. That might be what they need. And but now I'm working with Dead and Company, the Grateful Dead. I take care of Mickey Hart, and Mickey's the best, man. But there's no margin for error with Mickey. He's a smart dude, uh, you know, and he's got a heart of gold, but he's serious about what he's doing. It got to sound right. If he comes up on one of the big drums or one of the octobans isn't tuned yet, he knows instantly. And so for me, that's probably the most meticulous thing, because I've got, you know, 40, 50 drums on stage with him. It's all got to be tuned in. It's got to be tuned in tune for his drum solo and the sequences they use with the beam. Or if we say have a balafone up that day, which is an F sharp, I got to tune the drums to make sure they go well with an F sharp, a key of F sharp. So if you know what you're doing, you can provide whatever the sound person needs. And for the person at home, my question would be, wouldn't you rather learn just how to get it right every time easily, rather than go, oh, it's fine, because you don't feel like learning?
well,
Or
what
you,
else you're doing here, Kenny, is you're getting rid of all these drum jokes that we have to endure about drummers, because right? Because I mean, it's like it is a science. There's no question about it.
it's physics.
Right, and there's got to be a lot of patience involved. Is that a fair statement?
Yes and no. I
Okay.
mean, it's hard for me. Like, dude, I talk about it on my YouTube channel, but I don't show you everything because, you know, I want you to support my YouTube channel. You
That's
know,
fair.
but I make my video lessons super cheap on my website so you can learn.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's not complicated. What I actually do is pretty simple. Now, the intricacies could be a bit more complicated, but I think the thing that keeps people from really getting into it is the ear part of it. You know, I think, you know, drummer jokes aside, because what are we tuned to? Boom, bap, and crack, you know, right?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of guys and gals veer away from it because they don't trust their ear, or they haven't trained their ear yet. I think once they start training their ear, they start to go, wait a minute, I can hear it. I can hear it. But it's also about taking the time to look at the drum and listen to the drum. Like, I tune with my eyes, ears, hands, all at once to help my mind know what to look for. Giving yourself a reference point is fundamental, because if you don't have a reference point, how are you going to know where you're going?
Sure.
You know, if you don't have Google Maps and you don't have a map, how are you going to know how to get to Cuyahoga Falls? You ain't going to know.
Man, you just
You
met
know?
me, but you know me. Holy smokes, that's amazing.
Yeah, dude, it's just fundamental. So I get all these people online who talk about, you don't tune a drum, you tension a drum. Well, yeah, you tension a drum, but the tension has a sound.
Yep.
Well, that's 72 psi. Well, you know, what is the sound of 70 psi? Well, it's a frequency. Well, what is the frequency? Well, it's a note. Yeah, see, I got you.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
note, bro. And by using a note, you give your ear the chance to actually listen to your lugs and your tension rods clearly, so you know what's going down with everything. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, this isn't as hard as I thought it was.
Right.
Oh, now I know which ones are low. And that's the thing. I also use geometric patterns in my tuning that are based on creating equal tension. And part of what's important to me for tuning is people don't think about these things. You know, they just start cranking on one and crank on the other and crank on the other. But if you're not taking the time to really balance your drum head from the start and get the tension rod threads all kind of on the same level from the start, you're shooting yourself in the foot. Because a lot of times, you know, you'll be playing a drum and it's like, this whole side came undone. Double check, because the one across from where it all came undone is probably really screwed in deep, and the other ones aren't quite as deep. And if that happens, you don't have equal relative tension. You have one source of torque
Yep.
holding the drum in place. And that's why when I see people give advice like, well, you know, just gotta press it till the wrinkles get down, then start at quarter turns, it's like,
So I was just gonna say, so the kit that I'm seeing here in the background, that looks
oh,
that looks vintage.
actually, yeah, I just got done shooting a video on how to tune a 24-inch bass drum. So this is a vintage Rogers Butcher's Block bass drum, and that's actually one of the new Rogers Dynasonic aluminum shells. Ooh, it's tasty.
Beauty. So,
it's tasty.
you know, people love vintage, people love new. In terms of tuning, what differences or nuances would you have to look at to doing those and making them sound the way they should?
Well, again, man, you know, I love vintage drums. There's some drums that just sound great. old Gretsch, old Ludwig for the 70s or like late 60s, or Rogers from the late 60s, early 70s. You're like, oh my God, some old Yamaha drums. You're like, oh my God, it sounds so good. Recording customs from the 80s, yo, come on. But when it comes to vintage, the key factor for me, the number one factor is, whose kit is it? Because if it's one of Ringo Starr's kits, it was probably preserved in a museum somewhere, or belonged to this legendary studio drummer. It's probably relatively well taken care of. Like Pete showed up on tour when I was out with Elvis Costello with the Gretsch kit he recorded all of Elvis's first 4, 5, 6 albums with.
Wow.
It was the kit in the studio. Oh my God, did it sound good? However, it was older. And the thing with older drums is if they're taken care of, if they're not taken care of, they got issues. You got hoops that are bent. You got lugs that aren't right. Or like, what do you call it? Swivel nuts that are rusted out. You have bearing edges that have been dented. Sometimes there's separations in the shell, little things that tend to affect how you tune the drum. But again, even if they've been taken care of, there's still hoop warpage. There's still shell shifting. There's still things, especially if it's like 3-ply shells, even with re-rings over time. A lot of those drums, if they're not kept in a perfectly hermetically sealed environment,
right,
they will warp. And so that is where the craft of tuning really comes in, because then if you know how to get what you want, you can make that drum do what you need. That's where the challenges really come in. Like on a perfectly tuned drum, you got it all balanced. You can hear the one that's out, you tune it up, then you tune them all up a little bit, and then there you go. Your drum is in tune. But with vintage drums, sometimes there's that little dip in there.
right.
And you got to account for it without breaking up the balance tension too much, but you still have to account for it. And so a vintage drum can sound great, especially in the hands of someone who knows what they're doing.
So the saying goes, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet. So how many eggs did you break in order to master your craft and get yourself to the point where here you are?
Man, I'm always breaking eggs. I'm still breaking eggs, bro. You break eggs every day. Life is learning. If you're not learning, what are you doing?
Right.
You're not pushing the envelope.
Right.
You know, and I went to a backline company today, talk about doing some shows with them, and I told them I know a lot, but you got to remember, even on these gigs with the rookies that I will be going out and doing these backline gigs with, I'm going to teach them a lot, but they're going to teach me some. I mean, like, wait, how do you do that chaos pad? What? Oh, that's so dope. You know, we can all teach each other things and learn from each other if we keep that mind open and the spirit of giving in mind. I mean, that's part of the reason I did my channel. It's like, dude, I could sit here and hoard this knowledge, and especially with the lessons. I could not do those lessons. You could just get ideas and hints and allegations from my YouTube. But I want the legacy of what I'm doing, if that's even the word to use. I want the knowledge out there. I want people to be changing the way they tune drums, for a couple of reasons. Like I said on Fred's podcast, I want to hear good drums when I go into a club.
Sure, absolutely.
But also I want to see drummers be free of that fear we talked about right at the beginning. I want to see them just go, no, I know how to tune this. Because then everyone's going to show you more respect. And if you're doing studio gigs, the studio guy's like, well, I don't like the way that drum's ringing. Can you? Yes. And it's fixed instantly. They're like, oh, well, could you do that? Yes. And they fix it. And all of a sudden they're like, well, for the next song, could you make the snare a little bit more like this? Yes. Okay. Not only does that make the session go smoother, not only does it make you more confident and probably play more confidently, and the engineer treats you more nicely, but you know what they do? They call you back, bro.
Absolutely. Hired again.
They call you back. And that's, I think, the number one thing you want to think about in terms of tuning. You could be a great player, but if your kit sounds like garbage, you might not be called back. But if you play pretty good, but your kit sounds amazing, and you have a good vibe, you know how to hang, you're probably going to get called back. And that's what we want as drummers, for clubs and bars to want us in, for other players to want us to come play with them. You know, you want that community and unity. So again, knowing how to tune a drum well helps. But I mean, I started doing this 2-key method I do when I was doing marching drums. Broke a head right before dress review, and I'm like, oh my God, I gotta put a new head on. I started doing 2 keys, and I started going, wait a minute. And I started thinking about it right then and there. And after that, it became more of an art and a craft. And then I began to learn all the little idiosyncrasies of like interval tuning, where the bottom head's tighter than the top head, or the top head's tighter than the bottom head, and those sounds that'll give you, and the things that'll do for you. And sometimes you think you've tuned the drum perfectly, but in this room with this reflection, it's given a little bit of warble. Well, guess what? You just sharpen that one head or the other head a little bit, and all of a sudden, warble gone. So it's about knowing the instrument well enough to know how to flex your opinion on something quickly, to modify it quickly, and know what it's going to do to it. But also, sometimes you just guess.
Well,
I think
fair.
it'll do this. I don't know.
Fair.
It's not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So again, I'm always breaking eggs, man.
So there's so much information out there, right? Like you have a channel, and other people would be doing stuff, and and so you get this thing where I mentioned the do-it-yourself thing. This could be an amazing. Hey, maybe you pitch it, a reality TV show on tuning drums, and everybody comes in, and you're like the Simon Cowell that gets to kick somebody off for not tuning them correctly. But I mean, and all joking aside, it just seems like as much information as there is out there about it. Well, think about it like this, right? When you and I were probably learning how to play and learn songs, you had a tape and you had to rewind the tape and find the spot and redo it. And now there's 18 different angles of the drummer's feet and his overhead and whatever, right? And so you kind of learned, a very sort of different way than what kids would learn now, right? So wouldn't it make sense that the kids should be amazing tuners? Like really
it would make sense, but it does. How do I put this politely?
Yeah.
A lot of the information I see out there, you learned from a guy named Todd, who was the drummer in your uncle's band, and he told you how to tune drums in between bong bits.
That's too real.
Kid, you just want to go to the store about quarter turn. Yeah, that's the way it is. And you looked up to him, so you kept that. Or your jazz instructor, or your, your junior high band director. And some of them did. I've gotten great tips from those cats, and I've applied it to my stuff. But they don't know what you're doing right now. Like, I have a couple of cats who come to me regularly just for tone checks when they're changing their vibe. If you're playing heavy metal, the advice your jazz teacher gave you might not be appropriate.
Yeah.
And there's some great stuff out there, but they don't really show you things. They talk about it.
Right.
They hint and allegations. Like, at least on my YouTube, I may not show you all my methods 100%. I give you a lot of information. I started early on giving TuneBot settings and drum dial settings in some of my earlier videos just to help drummers use those tools and find ways to get to it. But the reality is, as far as I'm concerned, there's only one way to tune drums. Let me clear this up. There's only one way to tune drums.
So I had a guitar player friend. He sends me this video, and I won't name the drummer because he's an amazing drummer and he's considered a legend. But he goes and he's tuning a kick drum, and the first thing that he does is he puts the head on, he gets on it, he starts jumping up and down on it.
Okay, Simon Phillips, God bless him. Yeah, I know.
It was Simon Phillips. So my friend Dave was like, "That's how you tune a kick drum." And I said, "Yeah, but we probably didn't see the 4 heads that he went through that he doesn't pay for. Like, everybody can't do that, right?"
Well, here's the thing. First of all, Simon's a little guy.
Yeah.
I'm like 5'8" and a half. I have a couple of techniques I'll use that I'm not going to tell a dude who's 6'4", 240 or 280 to do on their drums.
Right.
Now, Simon can get away with it. And yes, if the head tears, he's got it. Because if that like collar gives, and there was just a bad collar, it's going to be a bad day for him and his bass drum going in there. He's going to bruise up his knee, possibly split his ankle or twist his ankle. Yeah. It could split the shell. However, sitting on the drum head might be a good idea. However, let's get down to that. I see a lot of people do videos on drums, and they put the head on, they put it on, they get the lugs on, and then immediately before they even put tension on it, they start pressing on the drum. This is how you seat it. No, bro, collars are round, man. These are metal drums. These are modern drums. This isn't a wood hoop drum from 1942 with a calfskin head. That's not how you seat a head. Right. You see the head with tension on it. We got to stretch our modern heads. Even Evans, even Aquarium, that don't need a lot of stretching, they still need a little stretching. And I'll tell you how I know this, because if I don't stretch any of those heads enough at a show, my drummer starts playing, I will hear these words, Kenny! About 4 songs in, Kenny! What's going on? There's a big old divot right where they hit every time, or the head, you can see it dropped in pitch, and you even hear it drop in pitch. I don't want to hear my name like that. I want to hear them look at me and go, Kenny! That's what I want to hear my name, And so I did this thing with one of my friends who's a legend drum tech, and he's a great tuner, great tuner. But he had this way of breaking the bearing edge or breaking the glue seal on a Remo head. You know, the Remo heads tend to have a little excess glue seal. That's the cracking you hear when you tune them up. And my theory is, why spend all that time tuning the drum only to have it break unevenly, randomly, and then totally throw off your entire tension system? Why don't you crack the glue seal at the beginning, the way you can see my videos at YouTube, Kenny Sharretts, and start with a balanced head for the beginning, a regular just palette, you know, a clean canvas, if you will. But when you stretch a head, especially like modern day heads like a Emperor X, not so much so a triple threat, not so much so, but an Ambassador or even an Emperor or a Controlled Sound or a Genera, you know, they're only 10 and 12 mils, man, sometimes 7 mils. You start pressing, especially if you do that heart motion on your head, you're actually denting the head. You're putting an impression into the head. I mean, if you hit it with your stick, you're going to put a dent in it when it's soft, right? Same thing with your hands. And the drummer put on this Emperor X, put it on, got like one round of tensions on it, and then stood on it, just like Simon.
Yeah.
And the drum head can take it. It's fine, man. That's the quickest way to get it stretched. I mean, bro, you stand on your head, it's going to be in tune for the show.
Yep.
You sit on the head, it's going to be in tune for the show. Shoulder presses, you might be a little bit more work, but to me, when he did that, he saw me make the face, and I was like, no. And he saw me make the face when I did the cracking of the thing where he split the hoop like this and just kind of on the hoop, and not realizing, hey, dude, you just bent your hoop. You realize? I did? And he looked at it and he goes, fuck, I did. I've been doing that all my life. Yeah. Well, that's okay. Put it on. Took him a minute to get it balanced up, then he stood on it. And again, this guy is a great tuner. He makes drums sound so good. And he's one of the best techs I've ever worked with, man. Just an incredible drum tech, incredible dude. And he saw me make the face when he stood on it. And I was like, because it was kind of soft, I'm like, oh, he goes, what? And then I said, I'll show you in a minute. And I was taking off a single ply Ambassador that I broke the glue seal on and stretched the way I do, which is bringing it up to tension, massaging around the edge, so you put the impression of the bearing edge into the head, and you put it deeper in the collar, so when you release, that hooks, and then all of a sudden you just got a drum head that isn't going to go out of tune as much. It's going to be tonally better. It's not going to get floppy or flappy, even if it does go out of tune. And he starts trying to tune the drum, and he's like, man, I just can't get this thing to sit. I said, no, it's your bent collar, and it's the divot in the head. He goes, divot? So he pulls the head off to put a new one on. Obviously, this one's bad. And again, dude's a legend. I love him so much. And I said, come here, let me show you something. And he showed me his head. See, that's what I was talking about. And in an Emperor X, there is a dip. Yeah. And then I showed him the Ambassador that had done 3 shows under the weight of Pete Thomas's butt end of a 5B. Dude's like 6'4", huge dude, hits like a beast. Not a divot. It was perfectly smooth across, because I took the time to stretch it properly, because I took the time to seat it. So when I see people do that, that's one of the first things I go, well, if it works for you. Well, that's what I have to say. I don't want to judge. If it works for you, you've been doing that, go ahead, do it.
But there still is a bit of the Mendelbaum technique with some of that stuff, right? Like, you know, it's people learned something in the 70s, and that's like, you know, I can be accused of liking stuff before, not new stuff, more than anybody. But at some point in time, you know, if there's new techniques that are going to make your life easier, you got to at least look at them.
Hey, kid, check out Todd. He knows how to tune, man. Todd, come here, talk to my nephew.
Absolutely.
Sorry, man, that's the truth.
Yeah.
Now, dude, like, I know a lot of drum techs who stand on the heads, but most of them stand on the head when they are tight, not loose. I saw another legend who works for a legendary singing drummer, and he's just standing on him, but he's a little guy.
Yeah.
He's a smaller guy like me. We're both small-framed guys, little cats, and so you can get away with that. You know, if you're a really big cat, be careful. That's all I'm saying. Be careful for safety. Yeah. And again, my drum teacher, Craig LeMay, what a great guy, what a great drummer, and a great teacher. He would always get upset when you do that, because he's like, no, you take away the life of the bass drum head. And he's right. But Simon Phillips usually only has to last 1 or 2 nights.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
fair. Or, you know, but I mean, again, if it works for Simon over time, why, you know, who am I to say?
Absolutely.
You know, it's whatever you need, you feel, works for you. That is important. Tuning up the drum quickly and easily so you have time for lunch and flexibly like a guitar, that's a different story.
Absolutely.
You
So, last little piece of business here, my friend. Hit us with that YouTube channel so that people know where to find this stuff. I saw it. Incredible information.
Well, of course, it's YouTube, Kenny Sharretts, Sharretts. And if you like the channel and want to support the channel, I'm actually running a special on my website. It's a June Tune special. The code is June Tune, all capital letters, at KennySharretts.com. And I have 3 annual lesson packs, as well as you can get every lesson. It's just a 3-day rental. You can just rent the lesson that you want. But with my annual lesson packs, you get access to the lessons that are in the pack for a whole year. And it's super cheap. It's like $40, $60, or $100. And the $100 one includes an hour lesson with me.
Nice.
So basically for $40 more than the $60 one, you get a 1-hour online one-on-one lesson with me where you can actually watch the videos and come ask me all the questions. We do it together, and all of a sudden you're like, I can do this. And the cool thing about Lesson Pack 40 is like just a basic pack, got some basic fundamentals in it, and you can tune almost a whole kit. 60 or should I say the $60 one, number 2, and the $100 one, number 3, have every lesson have done. And it has every lesson I'm going to add during the year. Like if I add 4 new lessons during your year, you have access to those 4 new lessons. And so for cheaper than you would pay for your kid to take a lesson to learn how to play Highway to Hell, or you to take a lesson to play Highway to Hell at a Guitar Center, you're going to spend hours and hours of time with a dude who's tuned for some of the biggest acts in the world, some of the biggest drummers in the world, so you can actually be free. And I guarantee you it's like nothing else you see on YouTube.
And he's a great sales guy too. I have one last question, and
Ask away.
It's one name. Who is the one person that you have never had the opportunity to work with that you would love to?
Neil Peart.
Yeah. God rest his soul.
Phil Collins.
A bunch.
Okay, Brian Fraser Moore.
Yeah.
I almost got to do Brian Fraser, but it didn't pan out. The timing went different, and I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say. There are so many amazing drummers in the world, so many players. I mean, imagine studying under Billy Cobham or Josh Freese. You know, Josh would be a cat I would love to work for. But then again, I wasn't able because of life things happening, and I was booked with the Dead already, and that's my gig, and I love Mickey, and the tour fam's great. I had to say no to one of my dream gigs, which was Bryan Adams.
Oh, yeah.
Pat Stewart.
Ah.
And Steve Morrison is out there now, and I love Steve. That dude's a great guy. And I'll leave with this. It was one of the most humbling moments of my life was their monitor tech had to be the drum tech for a while. And he was a really nice guy, and they all loved him, so they wanted him to stay on tour. So he became the drum tech, and he took a bunch of lessons with other people, and then he came and took a lesson with me. And which made me great, because before I was teaching online drum tuning lessons, I don't think anyone was teaching online drum tuning lessons. I literally think I pioneered a craft for other techs and drummers to make a living off of. So I'm like, yay, job creation. You know, and I don't get jealous. I mean, do it. If you know what you're doing, man, help people out. It's beautiful to pass knowledge along. He took the lesson with me. Drums sounded great. When he was done, he was looking at his kit like this, shaking his head. And I said, what? He goes, I thought it was going to be a lie. I thought it was just going to be more BS like the other lessons I took. This is the real deal. This is science. I said, I know, right? So I went to a Bryan Adams show, and the sound engineers and everybody else came out and thanked me, and they were like, Kenny, check this out, the drums. And he was all in front of his kid like, check it out, Kenny, hit him. And I'm like, man, this kid sounds great. So I know the sound of my drums, and it sounded amazing, and I was so honored and humbled, but not as much so that when I went back to Bryan Adams in Vegas during our residency with the Dead, and this drum tech had now become the monitor engineer. And so when I couldn't do the gig, he brought in the legendary Steve Morrison. And Steve Morrison comes up to me and goes, Kenny, come here, check this out, and starts talking all my theories and sharing things. He goes, this is how I'm tuning drums from now on. And to have a cat that good, to have a cat of that stature, and just one, he's also a wonderful dude. Take one bit of stock in what I have to say, woo, man. That let me know it's some truth. And you can ask Stevie Wonder, too. Is Kenny here? Kenny's here.
Amazing. Sir, it was so nice to meet you. I'm glad we did this. I want to stay in touch with you because I'm sure I'll have questions, when I'm going down there. And I'm going to send people to your page and your YouTube channel. And thank you so much.
Oh, by the way, quickly, the June Tune special is $5 off every lesson pack. So that makes the $45 $140, the $60 $155, and the $100 one only $95. But it's only good through June.
Get on it, kids. We're back after this.